We're most delighted to be joined by Mr. Samir Abbas, and he's an Egyptologist and historian. Thank you so much for being with us.
Good morning.
Very good morning to you, and a Happy New Year as well. You're talking to us today about the Western Egyptian deserts.
Good morning, Nancy. Good morning, Kareem. So I just want to remind our audience that we started that almost that is the number 5th in our interviews about the hidden treasures of Egypt. So the first one was introduction to introduce the importance of this subject and how we can attract more tourism and more tourists to visit Egypt by probably introducing these hidden treasures. So then after that we decided to classify that according to the geographical location.
Right.
And we cover different parts of Egypt, and today we are going to cover a very important part of Egypt, the Western Egyptian desert. Not only a very important part, but also it is one of the largest areas. It covers almost 2/3 of Egyptian land, more or less, is the Western Egyptian desert. So first of all, when we talk about this desert, we need to explain the location. The location of the Western Egyptian desert is to the west of the Nile Valley. And when I come to that, there is an argument about the proper name of this area. Because from an international perspective, it is not called the Western Egyptian desert. And there is something which I was facing when I was looking for in my study about international or English references about this area. I was keeping looking for the Western Egyptian desert, but actually hardly I found anything. But when I started looking for the Eastern Sahara desert, there was many references talking about this area. So from international perspective, it is known as the Eastern Desert, the Eastern African desert, because it lies in the east of African continent. So from Egyptian perspective, it is west to the Nile Valley, and that's why it's called the Western Egyptian desert. When it comes to the desert, it is, as we know, there is hardly any rain. It is very arid, hardly inhabited by people there, except in a very few places, which is, we call it oases.
Right.
And for example, Dakhla Oasis, Kharga Oasis, Siwa Oasis, Farafra, and Bahariya. These are the most important or the most famous oases in the Egyptian Western Desert.
Right.
And the interesting thing that these oases has not only attracted the attention of the people today, but attracted the attention of even the ancient Egyptian kings back in that time. As early as the Old Kingdom, prehistory, we have an evidence that there is a deep history in these oases. So today I would like to start from the south, because from ancient perspective that the southern part has been developed earlier than the northern part, and the civilization was shifting from south towards north. And I would like to choose Nabta Playa, or more specific, the Stonehenge in Nabta Playa. Nabta Playa is one of the early settlements of prehistorical time, which is inhabited, which is considered from archaeological point of view is a prototype, or better to say is the start. That is the start point of a great civilization there. So we have a Stonehenge there, and I know that when it comes to the Stonehenge, people, they think that we're going to talk about the famous one in England, but we have one which is nearly 2,000 to 3,000 years older than the one in England, which is called Nabta Playa, Stonehenge, and it's nearly 5th to 6th century BC. It is astronomical device and lies in the middle of nowhere in desert, 120 kilometers to the west of Abu Simbel temple. So the importance of this location, it helps us greatly to understand the origin of the ancient Egyptian civilization.
Right.
The Egyptian civilization is very well documented. Once they started writing down their language, which is, we call it hieroglyphics, but before that there was a very long period of
evolution.
Of evolution, thanks Kareem. So of evolution to help in starting this civilization, and Nabta Playa is very important to understand that. So now the Stonehenge is not displayed in the original location. It is very far for the people to go and visit. So this hidden treasure now has been moved to the garden of the Nubian Museum, leaving a replica there. So I brought actually some photos and illustrations.
We're going to be putting them on air now.
Exactly, which is about that.
Yes.
So in another, yes, exactly, that's what I'm talking about, is that was used as astronomical device. We are talking about nearly like 7,000 or 8,000 years old. Astronomical device to predict the rain season, the cultivation season, the harvest season, a very advanced technology for that time. Then moving on from south to north. So everyone knows about the Bahariya, the White Desert, and Farafra, Dakhla. We will not talk about that, but we will talk about some places which is not well introduced or hardly known, like Gara, like the Gara cave. So that is actually, this picture also comes from the area of around Fayoum. That is a monastery. So when it comes to the monasteries, Egypt is considered the founder or the founders of the monastery, the monasticism in the whole world. We have monasteries dates back to the 2nd century AD, 2nd century AD by the Red Sea, which is considered historically the oldest known monasteries in the history of mankind. So the interesting thing about this picture and this location, which is known as Abu Lifa Monastery, lies in the north of Fayoum Lake and Fayoum Oasis, in the middle of nowhere now. It is a prototype of how the monasteries looks like. When you go to a monastery now, it is mainly, there is some medieval buildings, but it's mainly like modern buildings. But you don't see how they lived their life back in the old days, in caves, in a very primitive way, you know. So and that is the importance of Abu Lifa Monastery. It is the only one which is I've seen in Egypt so far, which is giving you an idea of how this life was. So the other pictures which is on the screen now, that's for Gara Cave, and that is in the western Egyptian desert near Dakhla Oasis. And Gara Cave hardly seen by people. I remember that when I made a trip there, it's one of the problem that is difficult to reach, you know. So we had to take a 4-wheel drive for nearly 3 days in the desert. And we have to take more than one car because the area is very uninhabited. In case of there is something wrong to happen on car, we have a backup. And the funny thing that the backup car, which is broke in the trip, you know, which is, we were leaning on the backup car, you know, to make us safe. So in this cave, there is wall carvings and paintings, you know, very primitive ones, and these pictures actually took it inside the cave.
Does it date back to the Egyptian Old Kingdom?
Prehistory.
Oh.
Prehistory. So prehistory, you know, so the writing there, because there you will find in the middle of the desert in this cave, people hunting, like pictures, like graffitis of people hunting, swimming, fishing, which is, that means that it was completely different.
It was a livable.
Exactly, there was rain in the Egyptian desert. There was rain before being desert. There was rain, and there was lakes, and there was lots of animals like tigers, gazelles, and lots of animals there. And that's why this cave and similar cave, you know, like this one, is very important to understand about how life is lived in a prehistorical time in Egypt. So apart from that, you know, so we were moving actually slightly to the north now, you know, which is to Fayoum and the area around Fayoum. That's, from my understanding, that's one of the golden treasures of Egypt today. And when you talk to the Egyptian desert, myself, I have a great fan to the desert. And I noticed that when I encourage people, some of my friends or customers comes through me to visit Egypt, I noticed that those repeated customers, repeated tourists who come to visit Egypt, so they might come to visit Saqqara or Giza Pyramid just once. But when come to the desert, they would like to come many times, which is mean that if you are looking for a repeated tourists to come repeated in Egypt, it's better to introduce, of course, the historical sightseeing is very important, but desert is a completely different experience. It's very peaceful when you come out there. So the advantage of the north side of Fayoum Oasis is still untouched, and it is only 2 hours drive from Cairo. So, and Cairo is the center of tourism. That's where everybody get in and out. So in less than 2 hours, you can get them out from the asphalt paved road into an area where they can see Abu Lifa Monastery, where they can see an ancient temple dates back to the Old Kingdom, which is Qasr Sawa. They can see an ancient Greek city, walls, which is higher than 20 meters height in the middle of nowhere in the desert, dates back to the 3rd century BC. They can find it there. They can see the oldest preserved, the oldest known paved road in the history of mankind, which is used to move blocks and stones from the quarries by the Old Kingdom people 4,500 years ago to the Nile Valley. You can see the quarry where they cut the stones, the black basalt, which is used around the Great Pyramid. So That's when it comes to this area, which has had a great hidden treasures.
Right.
Siwa Oasis, which is that's the way we will end.
Yes.
That everybody knows Siwa Oasis. I will not talk about what is known already, but I will talk about what is unknown.
Exactly.
These salt lakes there can give the visitors the same experience of being in the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea had a great tourism in the Holy Land and in Jordan because of the floating state you can have there, and because of the mud. We have the same thing in Siwa. We have a medical tourism for treating rheumatoids and by burying in the sand. And on top of that, we have untouched monuments, which is one of the photos which I brought. That's near to Ain Shuruf, Shuruf well. And unfortunately, the walls of these ancient settlements collapsing now and need immediate action to preserve them. That's a settlement dates back to at least 2,000 years old.
So has the UNESCO interfered?
So far, no. So far, no. It is left in the middle of nowhere. It is even in the suburb of Siwa Oasis. And that is I'm actually, one of the reasons why I choose this subject today to preserve and to save this site, which is the archaeological site and the settlements near Abu Shuf Spring.
Right.
I'm visiting this site for nearly 10 years now. It is deteriorating a year after a year.
Right.
And it's really unbelievable sites because it was in continuous inhabitation for more than 2,000 years with the temples, with the walls, with the mills and the houses of the people there. But unfortunately it's collapsing now.
Well, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for Hidden Treasures this week. But again, we're going to be seeing you again next week. So, ladies and gentlemen, do stay tuned for more from Egyptologist and historian Dr. Samir Abbas. Thank you very much.